Hello everybody, my name is Tiana, the owner of Winding with Candles, and here we are in my candle and gift shop store, and it is a couple days after Christmas, the end of the year, and this means that we are going to have to do inventory on all of our stuff so that we can file our taxes. And some of these numbers that you're going to need to know are your ending inventory, your cost of goods sold, and that means you really have to account for everything throughout the year. If you do this at the end of the year and you don't do it anytime else throughout the year, it's going to be very, very hard for you. So my suggestion to you is to account for inventory throughout the year. But in this video, I'm going to show you how I kind of do my ending inventory count with my fragrances, wigs, wax, and the systems that I use to keep it all organized. So let's get into it. All right, so I'm here at my computer and I'm going to hop on and start kind of organizing everything, making, you know, a plan of action and maybe some checklists and things like that. So once we get into it, we'll know what we're doing. I like to use Notion. So I would say you could do this on pen and paper if you want, or if you want to go digital, you can use programs like Notion, Trello, ClickUp. I'm going to be using a combination of Notion and ClickUp. So Notion is like my go-to, my personal organizer, and I'm going to show you guys my dashboard and how I organize it. All right, so here we are at my Notion dashboard. If you are familiar with Notion, you know how flexible this program is and you can really create anything. So mine is a little bit more advanced. So my dashboard is set up almost like a video game. So when I complete tasks, my characters level up and it's a whole thing, but I love it. It works for me and it's actually really organized. So you can see my character, this is my little pet, and then here's like my little habit tracker journal thing, and then we get down to here, we can add projects, and I can't show you all my projects right now. So we can add project. All right, here I am in the project page, and I'm just gonna do my project template. And again, your Notion is not gonna look like this if you're using Notion, so just keep that in mind. But I'm gonna call this end of year wrap up. And then I want to have this done by the 31st. And let's do maybe a checklist. Okay, so far this is what I have, and it's probably going to get more in depth as I really get into it, because besides inventory, I'm going to have to do some other things on the finance part to make sure everything's wrapped up for the end of the year. But since we're just talking about inventory today, this is where we are going to start. So now we're gonna hop into Craftybase, and I'm gonna show you more of that because that's really important to help us with inventory. So let's do that next. So here we are in Craftybase. Every Monday, you know, these charts reset back to 0. So today's Monday, we are starting fresh. And I am just going to kind of show you guys around and the reasons why I like Craftybase. So first of all, I know there are a lot of inventory softwares, and I've had inventory companies reach out to sponsor my channel before, but I just cannot rock with anything else just because Craftybase is awesome. So I know a lot of people use also Inventora. That's actually a really great software if you want to start, but it just doesn't work for me just because of the sales channels that it supports. So let me show you guys what I'm talking about. All right, so when we look at sales channels here, you can see I have 4 different sales channels supported. So for example, with Inventora, they don't support Square, Amazon. So I would be really limited with that software. So these sales channels really help me a lot because it integrates everything. So anything I sell on Etsy, on Shopify, on Amazon, or on Square, it's all going to come back to this one platform to make it really easy for me to track everything. And another hack for you guys is there are some platforms that just aren't supported with Craftybase, but if you have Shopify, see if there's an app that you can install. So for instance, I also sell on Walmart, but I have integrated Walmart with my Shopify. So Walmart kind of falls under the Shopify category for me as well. So everything is connected. So another thing I love about Craftybase is the manufacturer section. So this is everything that we have made. We document that in here. Anytime we make anything, it's going to be documented. It's going to have a recipe attached, and that recipe is going to deduct from our material section. So whatever fragrance, wax, wick, or anything that we use in a certain candle, it's all going to be automatically deducted when we create a manufacturer. So in my Candlebiz Academy online course, I have an in-depth tutorial on how to set up everything in Craftybase. Craftybase is really awesome for me. So we talked about manufacturers, and then also materials is another important one, especially when it comes to your taxes. So any materials you are going to put into here, your fragrances. So let's just look at a fragrance and show you the breakdown of how that material is entered in. So we have the material name, and we track our fragrances by ounces, but you can totally do whatever you want here. If you track by grams, then that is totally up to you. Just know that whatever method you choose for your unit of measurement, you're going to have to stick with that throughout. So my fragrances are ounces, my wax is by pounds, so that just kind of gives you an idea. And then we have a starting quantity, and it gives you your average cost here. So as you buy more materials, Craftybase is going to keep that cost here for you to make it really easy to see how much things are cost. To make it really easy to see how much things cost. And then this is our bin location. So we organize our fragrances in our workroom, and so this particular fragrance is in bin B2. So and also categories are super important. So when you are putting all of your materials in, make sure to add them to a category, because when you go to run reports, it's going to be a lot easier for you to filter everything out. So if you skip this step, it's just going to be kind of a headache when you go to do inventory. And then I like to put my preferred vendor, because when I do run out of things, I like to run a low inventory report. And when you do that, it tells you the fragrance and the vendor that you usually get that fragrance from. So that's just kind of a walkthrough of the materials. Now we're actually going to go to reports, and I'm going to show you some stuff there. So this Schedule C guidance report is really handy because it tells you things you're going to need for your Schedule C. So it's going to give you your cost of goods sold, your ending inventory, and all of that. But of course, you're going to have to still go back and just make sure all of those numbers are correct, but it gives you a really great starting point. Before we continue on with the video, I want to thank Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes. So whatever you're looking to do, if you want to start a new business, if you want to amplify a skill set like drawing or whatever you choose to do, sewing, knitting, you can turn to Skillshare to find all of those classes. So I found this really cool class by Sonia Razula, and it is called Start Your Creative Career, Build a Sharp, Smart Online Presence. And that is just what I'm looking to do this year. So whether you are starting or if you are already an entrepreneur, I think this will be a very valuable class for you, because it just teaches you things like thinking of yourself as a business, understanding your analytics, which is super important, also building a website, social media. So these are some great tools we need to succeed at entrepreneurship. So the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link down below can get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare if you all want to test it out. So I encourage you to check out, especially, you know, for the new year. You might learn some really cool information. But anyways, thanks again Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it. Okay, so I showed you guys how to use Craftybase to kind of run a report on your supplies, but I also got some fragrance oils in before the holidays, so I want to make sure I check that in now so that when we run our reports, it will all be in there. So I got these from Candle Science, and I'm recording my iPad so I can show you guys how I check these in. So from the expenses section, I'm going to find the expense where these were, and I already input the expense as soon as I ordered the items. I find that's easier for me, just so I don't forget. So as soon as I order something, put the expense in, and then you can see here how all the green checks here, it means I paid for the items, but there's no green check at received. So I'm just going to edit, and I'm going to see what I got in the mail. So I got the sandalwood fragrance, so I received that one, the Caribbean teakwood fragrance, and the magnolia. And then I also had a sample, so I'm gonna make sure I received that one too, which I don't think I did, honestly. Oh, here it is. I got the sample. So here's the little sample. So I even include my samples in my inventory, and how I do that is each sample sent costs $2.95 on Candle Science, and under the discount section I just put $2.95, so it kind of equals it out, but I'm still getting the fragrance into the system. So now I'm just going to save the expense, and you can see I received everything. So the purpose of doing this is now when I go to the Caribbean teakwood material, it's going to say I have 16 ounces on hand. And if I didn't receive it, let's actually edit and then say I didn't receive it and hit save. When you go to the item now, it's gonna say 0 on hand, but I've purchased 16, so that lets you know that it's on order. It'll have like a typo there, but yeah, that's kind of how you receive items. And now I'm gonna actually show you all how to calculate how much fragrance oil you have left. I know that's kind of tricky because this is liquid, but I'll show you how we do it here. So let me actually turn the camera over. Okay, so I have my scale here, and here is that. And what I like to do for my scale, just to protect the scale, because it can get kind of messed up when you're putting heat, and fragrance oil can corrode like plastic. So I just use a clean cardboard, just recycling from boxes I have, and I put it on the scale, and then I just tear the scale, and that just helps protect your scale a little bit better. Okay, so I also keep empty bottles of all different sizes, and this is going to help me tear the scale because I just want to weigh the fragrance. I don't want to weigh the bottles. It's not going to be accurate if I just put the bottles onto the scale. So now that I showed you that, the next thing we're going to do is run a stock take, and I'm going to show you guys my screen right now. So what we're going to do is go to the 3 dots, and then you'll see stock takes. And we actually already did the fragrance oils earlier, but I'm just going to show you an example. So you can see all of this is completed, but we're just going to do the example one. So if I wanted to run the stock on fragrance oil, I would do add stock take, and then material type, and instead of random, you want to make sure to change that to all, because you want to capture all of your fragrance oil. And then hit fragrance oil and generate items to stock take. Now it's gonna pull up all of your fragrance oil. So that's why it's really important to categorize everything, so that this is really easy when you go to do your fragrance oils. So let's just say we're gonna do the absinthe fragrance oil. Let's see what we got here. Let's just pick one. Autumn Magic, which is in A4. So I'm gonna pull the bin A4. All right, so here is A4, and then we're gonna find the Autumn Magic fragrance. And usually when I do this, we just pull the whole bin and do all of the fragrances, so we're not jumping back and forth. So let me find that. Where is it? There it is. So we've got the fragrance. Okay, so we've got our Autumn Magic fragrance. And what we're gonna do now is find a bottle that is similar, that is empty, which is here. So this is just an empty bottle. And then I put it on the scale, and I make sure my scale is in ounces, and then we tear the scale to 0. So now it's 0, and I can take the bottle off. And now it says negative 1.3. So now we can put our bottle on, and we have about 14.9 ounces of this fragrance. So if we look onto Craftybase, Autumn Magic says 14.8, but that's close enough. So instead of changing anything, we're just gonna hit the check. Now, if you were to have a fragrance that was, different, if it was lesser than what it says here on the screen, so let's just say banana cream pie says there's 12.4, but let's say we measure it and there's actually just 6, then you would put 6 and check, and then it's going to give you a little warning, and it will tell you how much you're off. So that's pretty much how you would do your fragrance oils, and you would go all the way down. So it makes it really easy, and it automatically changes your stock in Craftybase. So once you finish this, everything is good to go. All right, so let's talk about the difference between an overhead expense and just a material expense. So when it comes to calculating the fragrance oil, so anything that goes into your candle needs to be an expense. So anything that you use for your candle materials, you need to make sure you're adding that to your expenses. Now, some things you just can't count, like for instance, glitter. So even if you put glitter on your candles, you still need to log all of that into Craftybase, but obviously you're not gonna weigh out the glitter before you put it on to your, you know, candle, unlike fragrance oil where it's a part of a recipe. So with the glitter, you would still do that as an overhead expense, and it is going to count towards your expenses. So let's say you bought some of these things. Now these are still going to be an overhead expense, and it's for the candle making, but obviously you can't calculate this expense into each candle. So that's kind of where an overhead expense comes in. So anytime you buy supplies, equipment, things for your business, candle making that is geared towards making the candle, then that needs to be a part of your expenses as well. So this would be an overhead expense. So if you are using embeds like me, I count these as an overhead expense just because I'm not counting each embed, and it's something that's really hard to track. So for wicks, we always use 1 wick or 2 wicks, but embeds could be a little bit more tricky. So I count these as an overhead expense. All right, we are in the storage room with all the containers. We count every single container, but it's really easy because you would just count the unopened boxes, and you know, if you had 8, you know, boxes and there's 12 in each, that's really easy to do. But you want to make sure you count all of these and you have them accounted for, even down to the lids. So I count each one of these because it's something that goes into the candle. It's not like glitter where you can't count each piece. So we do count all of the lids, all of the containers, and everything is categorized separately. So each container has their own little, I guess, material sheet or material page in Craftybase. All right, now moving on to the wax. We do count the wax also, which is really easy. So the only part, you know, that you would have to, I don't know. So if the box was open, then you would have to weigh the box. But if it's closed, like if you have a 40-pound box, obviously it's just going to be 40 plus whatever's in here. So the wax isn't too hard to count, but make sure each wax has its own separate page in Craftybase or whatever application you're using, so you can account for this also. So let's talk about finished goods. You do have to account for the finished goods on the shelf. So what we're going to do is we're going to count all of our candles and then make sure that's correct in Craftybase so that we can determine the cost of goods sold. So you know, these aren't going to account for the cost of goods sold. They're just going to be a part of our finished goods. So we're going to count this as well. All right, so I have my iPad here with Craftybase on it, and I wanted to show you guys an example of a product page. So I'm on the strawberry shortcake dessert candle page, and what's really cool about this, like I mentioned, it, you know, is tied to everything. So anytime you add a new sales channel to Craftybase, it's going to make a duplicate listing, but what you want to do is merge that. So pick one listing that's going to be your main one. So let's say if you have the strawberry candle on Amazon, Shopify, and Etsy, Craftybase, once you connect to the sales channel, it'll automatically pull all the listings. So then you would have 3 strawberry shortcake listings. So just pick one, merge everything into that one listing. So when I click on listings, you can see here where everything is at. So we have one on the Square register, which is back here. We have some on the Shopify site. So I have 2 because I have a wholesale and just a customer site. And then we have it on Amazon, and then we also have it here on Etsy, and then we have another one on Square. So we probably made a duplicate somewhere, but as long as you merge everything, then it'll all come back to this one main listing. So I'm going to show you the summary page. Now at the top you can see we should have 13 candles on hand. I don't know if that's correct. And then we have 1 candle that's committed, so that means somebody on the internet somewhere has ordered one that we haven't sent out yet. So then we have 12 available. And then it shows us just how much we've shipped and sold and how many candles we've made throughout the year. And to track how many candles you made, again, just keeping track of the manufacturer. So every time you make candles, just make sure to put it in the manufacturer, and then it'll keep everything up to date. So that is a really cool feature if you're wondering how that works. All right, so this is my first year having a retail store. So this stuff is gonna be a lot easier to do than the handmade items. So basically what we would do, we would just count all of the stuff that we have here on the shelf, make sure our count is correct in either, I think probably we'll just use Craftybase. So we'll update all of these counts in Craftybase so that we can keep all of our numbers together. All right, so I think I covered everything about how we do inventory at the end of the year. This is gonna be like my 4th year or so doing this, so I've gotten a lot better over the years. So just a summary, you wanna count your wicks, your wax, fragrance, oil, also anything that goes in the candle, like if you use any additives like stearic acid or anything. We do keep track of that and we count that also, we just weigh it. So that's what we do too. And overhead expenses are gonna be things that you really can't track, like glitter, paper, equipment, things like that. You wouldn't want to put that as an overhead expense. So hopefully that helped you guys out. And of course there are a lot of other things that come with doing your taxes at the end of the year. You're going to want to make sure you have all of your orders documented so you know where orders are coming from, because of course like January 20th you're going to have to pay sales tax on all of that stuff. What else do you need to know? So your profits, your income, so there's a lot. I would recommend, if you guys are struggling a bit, I have used Janet LeBlanc. She has a really good end of the year program. If you were someone that didn't keep track, I would say her program is 100% worth it. She really breaks it down to help you kind of gather everything you need to know so that you can do your taxes. So I will leave her links down below. It's Janet LeBlanc from Paper and Spark, because that's a whole nother video and I think we would just be here forever if I explained all of that. And she's a professional CPA, so it makes more sense to go with her. But anyways, that is everything I wanted to tell you guys. So let me know if you have any questions. You can put your comments down below. And also thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video, and my Craftybase referral link will be down below if you are interested in joining Craftybase. So thank you guys, bye.